Sometimes the people you call family are the ones who teach you how to walk away. Anonymous, hey guys, tonight on Revenge Stories 94, we witness a betrayal so quiet, so cruel, it didn't shatter in anger, it fractured in silence. This isn't just a story about a woman seated near the coat rack at her sister's wedding. This is about the slow ache of being overlooked and the quiet power of choosing yourself after decades of being asked to shrink. So before you get comfortable, please like the video and subscribe only if you truly believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Drop a comment with your city and time. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe pour a glass of wine, and let's begin. The scent of white roses and Pinot Noir still lingers in my mind when I think of that day. You know, the kind of wedding where every detail looks like it was plucked from a bridal magazine. That was Ellie's day. Vineyards, stretching out like green velvet behind her lanterns, hanging from oak trees and music playing so delicately even the wind seemed rehearsed. I arrived at the Napa Valley Resort in a wine-colored dress I had tried on 6 times before, finally deciding it made me look just appropriate enough. Not too flashy to compete, not too dull to be forgotten. But as I stepped out of my car, I had no idea I was walking into the beginning of an unspoken farewell, not just from my sister, but from the version of himself that still begged to belong. At the check-in table, a young woman with flawless makeup and the kind of smile you reserve for real guests looked up at me. Name, she asked. Julia Lawson, I replied. She flipped through the list. Her smile paused and something shifted in her expression, just enough for me to notice. Oh, here it is, she said. You're seated in the hallway area. I blinked. The hallway, yes, just outside the banquet room near the coat check, she said, her voice flat but efficient like this wasn't unusual. I looked over at the elegant seating chart on the easel beside us. The head table was graced with names like Mr. and Mrs. Lawson, my parents, and Dr. Ethan Bennett, the groom. Ellie's friends, her in-laws, even her yoga instructor had seats under the crystal chandeliers, and me. There was no Julia inside that hall. My throat tightened, but I managed a polite nod and took the place card from her hands. Table H, it read, with a tiny hallway in parentheses. The font was gorgeous. The placement felt like exile. I told myself it had to be a mistake, some kind of oversight, maybe a late change in the guest list. So I did what I'd always done. I swallowed the sting and walked toward the bridal suite to find my mother. Maybe she would help. I found her standing behind Ellie adjusting the veil like she was positioning a crown. They were laughing, radiating something I hadn't felt from either of them in years' closeness. Mom, I said, gently stepping in, can I talk to you for a second? She turned eyes narrowing just slightly. Now she asked, irritation creeping into her voice. We're in the middle of getting Ellie ready. Just a minute, I said. She sighed and stepped aside. Ellie didn't move, she just looked at me. Through the mirror, her lips curved into a tight, unmoved smile. I've been seated in the hallway, I said, careful to keep my tone neutral. My mother blinked, then shrugged. We had to prioritize close family. You know that. I am close family, I whispered. She let out a dry laugh. Don't make this into a thing, Julia. Ellie chimed in, her voice light as champagne. I'm sure it was just a mix-up. These events are chaotic, you know. But her eyes said otherwise. She knew she'd planned it. I turned to Mom again, hoping for a flicker of recognition, but she just sighed and said, Don't ruin your sister's day. Be grateful you were invited. That word grateful lodged in my chest like a stone. I didn't say another word. I turned around and walked away, heels tapping against the marble like tiny declarations of dignity. The hallway was silent, cool, and scented with forgotten bouquets. I sat down on a bench near the coat rack, holding the place card in my hands, like it might transform if I stared at it long enough. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I was too used to this. This wasn't the first time I'd been asked to sit quietly while others got the spotlight. It wasn't the first time my feelings were framed as too much or overreacting, but something was different this time, not in them and me, because suddenly I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't craving a seat at their table. For the first time in a long time, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not yet. Just clarity, cold and still like the wind that comes before a storm. They had written me out of the picture so many times, but today I finally stepped out of the frame, and I was done apologizing for how much that hurt. I didn't plan to remember it that day. but sitting there in the hallway, the silk of my dress pressing against the cold bench, and my name printed in gold next to hallway, the memory came rushing back sharp, vivid, uninvited. It was 3 Thanksgivings ago. Ellie was off in Lisbon with one of her temporary boyfriends, the kind she collected like seasonal handbags. The house in San Jose was oddly peaceful without her. No cloud of expensive perfume trailing through the hallway, no high-pitched laughter or clattering heels. It was the first time in years I had my mother to myself. That afternoon, she asked me to look for a few old photos for a memory album she wanted to give Ellie for her birthday. I remember smiling foolishly hopeful that for once I could be a part of something sentimental. I walked into my childhood bedroom untouched like a sealed vault. The bedspread with sunflowers still lay folded at the foot of the bed, and the bookshelf still held the same dusty trophies and faded yearbooks, tokens of a daughter who had quietly excelled without applause. I found the photo box, but my eyes drifted toward the vanity drawer, one she used to keep locked. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was something deeper, something searching. Inside was a soft brown leather notebook, worn at the edges, the kind of notebook someone would only use for things that mattered. I flipped it open, and I read, Ellie's first day of kindergarten. Brave little thing didn't even cry, just waved and ran into the room like she owned it. Ellie loves the pasta I make on Thursdays. Ellie was afraid of thunder, but only until she turned 7. Page after page, year after year. Every milestone, every heartbreak, every moment. Ellie sneezed, laughed, got a B instead of an A, felt sad, felt special, was inked carefully by my mother. Ellie, only Ellie. I turned the pages faster, desperate to see my name. Maybe a mention, a birthday, a school play, anything. Nothing. Not one line, not one word, not even Julia. I sat on the floor, the book wide open on my lap, knuckles white from clutching the pages. My mother walked in, drying her hands on a kitchen towel, humming something under her breath. She saw the book in my hands and smiled. Oh, that's just Ellie's journal. I had to write everything down so she wouldn't feel forgotten. She's always been sensitive. I bit my lip so hard I tasted metal. And me, she tilted her head, confused. What do you mean you never wrote about me? Her face didn't change. No guilt, no recognition, just that gentle condescension she'd mastered. You never needed it, she said. You've always been so independent. You were easy. I nodded, and then I think I even smiled, but something inside me cracked cleanly without sound. A fault line that had been building for decades finally shifted. It wasn't about being written in a book. It was about being remembered at all. Back in the wedding hallway, I clenched that place card and saw it for what it really was, a continuation, a perfectly curated life, where I was always just outside the frame, just outside the memory. Ellie stood inside the hall wrapped in white silk, glowing beneath chandeliers and praise. And I sat here near the coats. Again. I stared out the window beside me. Beyond the vines and the catering trucks, the sun was dipping behind the hills. Golden light spread across the valley, warm and uncaring. For a long moment, I wondered what would have happened if I'd just quietly endured this too. If I'd walked into that hallway table, smiled, sipped wine, taken pictures, and left before dessert. If I'd once again told myself that maybe next time they'd see me. But I wasn't that woman anymore. That girl who once counted how many times her mother had Ellie's name and wondered why hers never came up. She was still inside me, yes. But now she was standing up, dusting herself off, remembering that she had always existed, even if no one had written her name down. I think something changed the day I saw that notebook, but I didn't know how to act on it back then. I still wanted to be chosen. Today, I just wanted to stop fighting to be allowed in. Because I wasn't begging to be at the table anymore, I was finally realizing I could build my own. I didn't expect her to follow me into the hallway, but sure enough, just as I was about to stand and leave, the door cracked open and out stepped Ellie. Her veil caught in the breeze from the corridor vent, fluttering like something out of a bridal magazine. She looked perfect, of course she did. Every hair pinned, every freckle, airbrushed, every step rehearsed. She didn't sit down. She just stood there, arms crossed, lips curled into something that could pass for a smile if you didn't know her like I did. Are you upset? She asked, cocking her head. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was sweet. like someone offering you sugar right before the knife. Because of the seating, she added eyebrows raised like I'd just accused her of stealing a parking spot. I gave her a dry laugh. I'm not upset, I said. I'm disappointed. That stopped her, just for a second. Her eyes narrowed not in confusion, but calculation, like she was flipping through a playbook in her mind. You're always so sensitive, she said, in that sing-song voice she used to mock me when we were kids. It's just a seat, Julia. Who even cares? But she cared. She'd always cared. About where she stood, about how she was seen. And she knew I knew that. That's the thing I said, keeping my voice low and calm. It's not about the seat, it's never been. Oh, it's about the way this family treats me. The way you treat me. It's always been that way. She didn't blink, so what? You still came. Still wore the pretty dress, still hoped someone might say you looked nice or remembered your birthday. She took a step closer and her voice dropped just enough for only me to hear. You're desperate for their approval. It's sad. That stung, not because she was wrong, but because she thought it was pathetic. She thought needing love was pathetic. I looked her straight in the eyes. No, Ellie. What's sad is that you need to tear someone down just to feel loved. That made her pause just a beat. Then she laughed soft and breathy. You really know how to kill the mood. From behind her heels clicked against marble, our mother appeared clutching her purse like she'd been pulled away from something more important than this. There's some kind of drama out here, she asked, eyes flicking to Ellie, barely landing on me. I turned toward her. I wasn't angry, not exactly, just tired. Mom, I was seated in the hallway. She raised an eyebrow. I'm not some coworker or old neighbor, I said. I'm your daughter. Her lips tightened into a polite smile. Julia, it's not that we don't value you, it's just there were limited seats inside. We had to prioritize people who are closer. Closer to Ellie, I said. Her silence answered for her. She tried to cover it up. Aunt Cheryl, Ellie's friends from med school, her old tennis coach. They were all important to her. You've always been independent. We didn't think you'd mind. I didn't think I'd mind, I laughed. Soft, low, almost a whisper. You never think I'll mind. You never think I'll need. You never think I'll feel. Ellie slid back in. Mom didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. There it was again, that word, overreacting. I'd been hearing it since I was 12. You're overreacting, Julia. It's just a broken necklace. It's just a skipped birthday. It's just a hallway seat. I looked at my mother, then not the version of her I'd spent years trying to please, but the real woman, the one who never thought I needed to be written about. Do you even realize how grateful sounds when you've made me feel like a stranger my whole life? She said nothing. No hand on my arm. No, I didn't mean to. No, I'm sorry. Just silence. Then a voice from behind her, my father's, low and tired. It's just a seat, Julia. He said it like it was supposed to soothe me, like he hadn't just confirmed everything I already knew. I turned to him. I don't need you to defend me, but the least you could do is look me in the eye when you speak. He did, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt real. Ellie sighed like I was a child interrupting grown-ups. If you're that unhappy, she said, you can just leave. I looked at her, then at our parents, and something shifted. Not a collapse, a release. They'd spent so long treating me like I didn't belong, I almost forgot I had the choice to stop trying. So I did. Without another word, I picked up my clutch, stood up, and walked toward the far hallway. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was giving up. I felt like I was walking toward myself. I hadn't gone far. Just past the end of the corridor where the music from the reception softened into a faint hum, I found a quiet alcove with a narrow window. The vineyard stretched beyond the glass in perfect symmetry, but I couldn't focus on any of it. My body was still, my mind was anything but. I sat down on the ledge, unclipped my heels, and let my feet touch the cool stone floor. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just breathed. The kind of breath that feels heavier than air, one that carries years of weight behind it. That's when I heard footsteps, light, hesitant, slowing down as they neared. Julia, I turned my head slowly. Ethan stood a few feet away, his tuxedo crisp tie slightly loosened like the pressure of the day was already unraveling. He held a champagne flute but didn't raise it. Just stood there looking at me like he wasn't sure if he was interrupting something sacred or sad. I figured I'd find you out here, he said. This doesn't feel like the kind of wedding you'd be enjoying. I let out a quiet chuckle. Well, when you're placed next to the coat rack, it's not exactly a celebration. He didn't laugh, not really. His lips curved slightly, but his eyes stayed serious. You don't belong out here. I raised an eyebrow. Tell that to the setting chart. He stepped closer and sat across from me, resting his elbows on his knees. Look, I don't know much about your family dynamics. I've only seen the highlight reel. But something's off. I tilted my head. Off how? He looked down into his glass, then back at me. Ellie's different lately. Controlling, short-tempered, hiding things. I kept telling myself it was just stress, the wedding, the pressure, but, there's something else. He paused, then leaned forward. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Has she ever said anything to you about, anything strange? My heart did a small twist. Over the years, Ellie had said plenty, cutting little comments when no one else was around, mocking his job as habits the way he always needed to be liked. But I'd never repeated any of it. Not out of loyalty to her, but out of some strange sense of protection, like revealing her would make me the villain, like telling the truth would confirm I was the jealous sister. I looked at him now, this man who barely knew me but had sought me out not for gossip but for clarity. I took a breath. You might want to brace yourself, I said softly, because I don't think you really know who Ellie is. He didn't flinch. If anything, his eyes sharpened. Then another voice drifted in, smooth, clear, confident. If you're still unsure, maybe your mother can help make things clear. We both turned. Celeste Bennett stood at the edge of the hallway, her navy gown catching the soft light. Her posture was elegant, but her gaze was steel. She walked toward us with a grace that commanded the air. In her hand was a phone. Ethan, she said, offering the device. Look. He took the phone without a word. His thumb slid across the screen, eyes scanning quickly. First confusion, then disbelief, then something deeper, something like betrayal. She told her friends she was training me, he said, voice cracking, that I was too predictable and that this house, this life, would be hers. Celeste nodded slowly. There's more. Messages to her stylist, to her college friend. Plans to make you emotionally dependent after the honeymoon. To isolate you. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just stared at the screen as if the letters themselves had punched him in the gut. Finally, he looked up at me. I asked her to marry me because I believed in the version she showed me, he said. But you've seen the rest, haven't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to, Kay. Celeste's eyes moved to me. Julia, thank you for not turning away. I gave her the smallest nod. I wasn't here to be thanked. I wasn't here to be a hero. I was here because for once the truth had found a voice and it didn't need to shout. From that moment, I knew the wedding would never proceed as planned, not because I had done anything dramatic, but because sometimes just standing still in your truth is enough to tilt the room. The room they moved us to was on the second floor of the resort, a private conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the vineyard. From here, everything looked calm, picturesque, detached, the perfect setting for a storm to quietly break open. Ethan sat at the head of the long table, the phone still in his hand, like a stone he didn't know how to drop. Celeste stood behind him, a steady hand on his shoulder, her eyes scanning the horizon outside, like she needed the stillness to keep her own fury contained. I sat off to the right, hands folded in my lap, trying to stay composed. But my heart pounded so hard I was sure they could hear it. Years of silencing myself now throbbed in my chest like a war drum. The door opened again. I looked up. Ellie walked in, veil still in place, bouquet gone. My mother Linda followed behind her, clutching her clutch too tightly. Neither of them looked surprised to see us seated like this, like a jury. What is going on? Ellie asked, the pitch of her voice just a touch too high, a performance still hanging on by a thread. Why are you pulling people out of the wedding? Ethan stood up. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a white envelope. You know what this is. Ellie looked at it like it might explode. It's the petition to annul our marriage, he said, voice calm. Already signed. My mother gasped beside her. Ellie blinked, stunned. You're joking, right? Celeste didn't wait. We've read your messages, Ellie. Every word you said about Ethan, about me, about this entire family. There's no pretending now. Ellie tried, but Ethan cut her off. Don't, he said, his voice sharper now. You called my mother a rich old woman who only writes checks. You said I was too easy to manipulate, that all you had to do was act fragile and I'd do anything. Ellie flinched but said nothing. I trusted you, Ethan continued. I thought I knew who you were, but you never loved me. You loved what I could give you. Ellie's face changed not to remorse, but rage. That's not fair, she snapped. You're twisting things. Those were private messages, jokes between friends. Celeste raised an eyebrow. And the divorce consultation you filed last month, was that a joke too? The room went still, and that's when my father James walked in. Someone must have called him, though I hadn't. His eyes swept across the room. They landed on Ellie. Is this true? He asked. She looked away. Then he turned to my mother. Did you know? Mom shook her head slowly. I didn't think Ellie would do something like this. You never think, he said. You never look past what you want to believe. Then he turned to me. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, my father met my eyes. Julia, he said, voice low, raw, I'm sorry. My breath caught. I'd waited my whole life for those words. I never thought I'd hear them, especially not like this, especially not with the room falling apart around us. I've been silent too long, he said. I let things slide, let the imbalance grow, and I know now that you were right. About everything, I didn't know what to say. Part of me had given up expecting any version of this, but something inside me softened, not in forgiveness, but in recognition. Ellie lost it. You're taking her side. After all these years, she shouted, you're going to humiliate me over a few dumb texts. Ethan's jaw tensed. Don't call them dumb. They're who you really are. Ellie turned to me, eyes blazing. This is your fault. You poisoned them against me. You always want to take me down. I didn't flinch. No, I said quietly. I just wanted the truth to be seen. Mom stepped forward. She looked at Ellie the way someone looks at a painting they no longer recognize. A slow erosion of belief. I can't defend you anymore, she whispered. And Ellie froze. That was the moment, the shift, the exact second when she realized no one was going to clean up the mess for her this time. Her fists clenched at her sides, her makeup once flawless now smudged beneath her eyes. The white gown that had made her look like a queen now clung to her like something borrowed and breaking. You always wanted to ruin me, she hissed at me, her voice shaken. You never let me have peace. You stood in every corner of my life waiting to drag me down. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. But she didn't need my words. She lunged toward me, furious, out of control, and then out of nowhere a hand slid between us. Celeste. That's enough, she said, voice like a blade. Ellie froze mid-step. You've caused enough damage, Celeste continued, cool and firm, and if I let you do one more foolish thing, that would be on me. Ellie's chest rose and fell rapidly, her eyes darting from face to face, looking for someone and anyone to take her side. But no one did, not even the people who'd always made excuses for her. And that silence was louder than anything else in the room. She didn't storm out of the room the way I expected. No, Ellie Rose Lawson didn't storm. She performed. With one last wild glance, she turned and walked toward the door, her heels clicking hard against the floor like a drum roll that had lost its rhythm. But she didn't head for the exit. Instead, she pushed open the wide double doors that led straight back into the reception hall. The music was still playing, laughter, clinking glasses, someone calling out for the photographer, all of it still unfolding like the fairy tale she had choreographed for herself, until she appeared. Hair tousled veil, slightly torn at the edge, mascara bleeding beneath her eyes. The picture-perfect bride walking back into her kingdom undone. And just like that, the room fell into silence. People turned, heads tilted. A sea of stunned expressions washed over the crowd. The band stopped mid-song, unsure whether to keep playing or drop their instruments entirely. I walked in behind her along with Ethan, Celeste, my father, and hesitantly my mother. None of us said a word. We didn't need to. Ellie stood in the center of the floor, framed by cascading lights and white floral arches. She looked around, chest-heaving, hands shaking, and then she screamed. You think you can humiliate me like this? The room gasped. I gave everything for this day. I planned every second, every detail, and now over a few messages, a few meaningless words, you want to destroy me, she pointed toward Ethan, who stood quietly, eyes dark and steady. You love me, she cried. I did all of this for us. Celeste stepped forward slow and controlled the room, parting for her like she commanded gravity itself. I once hoped you'd be part of this family, she said, but you never wanted to be a Bennett. You just wanted what we had. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Guests whispered. Someone stepped back. I saw the wedding planner standing by the cake table, frozen in place, eyes wide with disbelief. Ellie was unraveling, publicly, painfully, like a woman watching the stage collapse beneath her, still holding the script. She's lying, Ellie shouted, spinning toward me. Julia's always been jealous. She spent her whole life in the background, and now she wants to take me down with her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. I just said steady and clear, I don't need to take you down, Ellie. The truth carries its own weight. For a moment she was silent. Even her breathing halted. People were watching her now, not with admiration but pity, and some with something worse, recognition, as if they'd seen this mask before and now finally understood the face beneath it. You can't leave me, Ellie said. Suddenly, her voice smaller now, almost childlike. She turned to Ethan. I'm your wife. We made vows. Ethan pulled the envelope from his pocket again and held it out for all to see. This is the annulment contract, he said, and I signed it. Celeste gently touched his arm. Let's go, she whispered. They turned, together, and as they walked away, Ellie stood there, surrounded by chandeliers and centerpieces, and eyes that no longer admired her. She looked like a bride carved in marble, cold, unmoving, and utterly alone. The music didn't start back up. No one clapped. No one tried to salvage the moment. A few people began to gather their things in awkward silence, pretending to check their phones. The illusion was over. A week later, I was back in my apartment in Oakland. No flowers, no noise. Just my familiar couch, the hum of traffic outside, and the long exhale I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My phone lit up. Mom calling. Again. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. 9 missed calls. 4 texts, all left unread. That afternoon, she sent another one. I know you're angry I can't change the past, but I want to see you. Just dinner. Just us. A year ago, I might have said yes. I might have chosen a nice blouse, curled my hair, rehearsed small talk, hoped even faintly that she'd say something kind, something soft. Maybe even I'm proud of you. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I placed the phone face down. No reply, no anger, just no longer necessary. That evening, I walked by Lake Merritt as the sun lowered behind the skyline. The breeze was cool. A group of kids were racing bikes along the path. Someone was playing jazz on a speaker near the boathouse. I sat on a bench and pulled out an old photo from my wallet. Christmas 2003, Ellie front and center in a red velvet dress, my mom's hand resting gently on her shoulder, and me barely visible behind the tree, one hand holding a paper plate. I folded the photo once, then again, then tucked it into a small envelope and sealed it shut. I didn't tear it. I didn't burn it. I just stopped needing it. That was the difference now. For years I waited for them to see me. Now I didn't need to be seen. I just needed to live. The silence in my apartment felt new, not the kind that used to feel heavy like a punishment for not being enough. This was the kind of silence that felt earned, deliberate. It didn't ache anymore. It breathed. I started making small changes, took down the framed photo of my family from the bookshelf, and replaced it with a watercolor print I bought at a street fair years ago, but never felt important enough to display. I moved the guest towels from the front closet and filled the space with books I had boxed up in storage. Books I loved, books I didn't need to explain to anyone. It was quiet, yes, but for the first time in years, it was also mine. That's when the call came through. Dad. It surprised me. He had always been the quieter one, the one who nodded more than he spoke, the one who sat in the same recliner during every holiday dinner, watching football while my mother filled Ellie's plate first. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Hi, I said softly. There was a pause on the line, not the awkward kind, the searching kind, like he was trying to hold his thoughts together long enough for them to mean something. Julia, he finally said, I'm not good at this. I know I said, and I didn't say it with bitterness, just familiarity. That day he continued when you spoke, when your mother saw Ellie for what she really was. I think for the first time in her life she understood how alone you've been. I said nothing, whether you forgive us or not. He said, I just want you to know I was wrong. My eyes welled, but I didn't let them fall. I know that doesn't fix anything, he added quickly, but I want you to know that I see it now. I see you now. A breath left me I didn't realize I was holding. Thank you, Dad, I said, but I don't need an apology anymore. I just need freedom. There was a long pause, then softly, I hope you find it. After we hung up, I stood in the middle of my apartment's small lived-in safe. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. That was enough. I went to the hallway closet, pulled down an old storage box, and opened it. Inside was the family photo album. The red leather binding was worn at the edges, the gold embossing dulled with time. The Lawson's Memories, 1980-2005. I flipped through it slowly. Easter dresses, beach trips, school award nights. In every photo, Ellie was in the middle, bright, centered, framed. I was there too, just not quite. The one handing her the birthday cake, the one standing 2 steps behind during the school assembly, the one holding the camera, not the moment. I didn't rage, I didn't cry. I simply closed the album, placed it in a new box, sealed it with packing tape, and wrote in black marker, Archive. Do not reopen. Then I carried it to the top of my wardrobe. I wasn't going to destroy the past. I just wasn't going to let it keep rewriting. The next morning, I opened my laptop and booked a flight to Maine. I'd always wanted to go, the coast, the quiet, the lighthouses. But there had always been something, a holiday dinner, a birthday, a reason to stay close and stay available just in case. Now, there was no just in case. There was only just me. The confirmation email came through a few minutes later. I read it twice, then smiled a small, honest smile that didn't need anyone's approval to exist. Later that afternoon, I walked to the flower market, bought peonies, just because I liked them. When I came home, I placed them in a mason jar on my windowsill. The light hit the petals in a way that made them glow faintly pink, almost like they were breathing with me. And that evening, as the city softened into dusk, I sat on my balcony with a glass of tea, watching the sky change like a painting in motion. My phone lit up again. Mom. I watched it ring and stop. Then I turned the screen off and leaned back in my chair. It wasn't indifference. It wasn't anger. It was peace. True, simple, overdue peace. The kind that doesn't ask for applause. The kind that doesn't need to be spoken to be real. I left for Maine 2 days later. No announcements, no dramatic exit. I packed a small suitcase, folded a few sweaters I'd been saving for someday, and left a note for my neighbor to water the plant on the windowsill. I locked the door behind me, not like I was leaving something behind, but like I was finally walking forward. The flight was quiet. I read a book I didn't finish. I looked out the window and let the clouds pass by like slow thoughts unbothered and free. When I landed in Portland, the air smelled different, cleaner, sharper, like something had been rinsed away that I didn't even know I was carrying. I rented a little cottage near the water. White siding, blue shutters, creaky floorboards, and a porch that faced the sunrise. It was the kind of place you don't just live in. You return to it, even if it's the first time. The first morning I woke before dawn. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't check my email. I simply wrapped myself in a blanket and stepped outside. The ocean was just a whisper in the distance, and the sky, not yet pink, not quite blue, hung like a promise waiting to be made. I made coffee in a small ceramic pot, sat on the porch, and watched the light grow. No news, no noise, just warmth blooming across the horizon like forgiveness for all the things I'd once begged for. And that's when I realized I didn't miss them. I didn't miss being tolerated. I didn't miss walking on eggshells hoping someone would finally say I mattered. I missed me, the girl who once collected stones because she liked the way they felt in her palm, the one who used to write poems on receipts, the woman who never needed to be extraordinary, just seen, just understood. Now I was giving her back to myself. I spent the week without a plan. I ate when I was hungry. I napped when I felt tired. I walked along the cliffs without headphones. I listened to seagulls fight over crusts of bread and waves argue with the shoreline and the wind say nothing at all. It was the first time I'd ever been alone without feeling lonely. One evening, I found a small antique shop tucked between a post office and a bakery. Inside, I discovered a vintage frame, tarnished gold, a little crooked. It caught my eye, not because it was beautiful, but because it looked like something that had outlived perfection. I bought it. Back at the cottage, I sat on the floor with the only photo I brought from home, not the old family Christmas one, not Ellie's graduation, just a picture of me alone, barefoot on a beach, taken by a stranger who asked if I wanted a memory. I'd never framed it before, but now I did. I placed it on the nightstand, not in the living room, not on a shared wall, just beside the bed where I slept alone peacefully. That night I folded laundry with the windows open. The breeze smelled like salt and lavender. I poured myself a glass of wine, lit a candle, and curled up with a book, not to escape my life, but to enjoy it. My phone buzzed once on the table, a message from my cousin Sarah. Heard what happened at the wedding. Just wanted to say I always admired how you held yourself, even when no one else did. I smiled, not out of validation, but out of recognition. I had held myself. I had carried every slight, every silence, every dismissal, and still stood. I replied, "Thank you, I'm doing well. I'm where I'm supposed to be," and I meant it. No part of me wanted to go back, not for closure, not for forgiveness, not even for explanation, because I'd finally understood something I had spent my whole life missing. Love isn't proven by proximity, belonging isn't earned by shrinking yourself. And family isn't just who you're born to, it's who holds you in their memory when no one's watching. It's who chooses you when there's no audience, and sometimes it's the person who finally chooses herself. I poured the last of the wine, turned off the lights, and stepped into bed. The framed photo caught the moonlight just enough to glow. I smiled, because for the first time in years I didn't feel forgotten. I felt found. In the silence they left behind, I didn't just rebuild, I rose. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Carl Jung, you've just witnessed a story of silent strength, not vengeance with fire, but with dignity. Julia didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply stood up, and that was enough to shift everything. At Revenge Stories 4, we believe stories like this matter, because behind every woman who walks away from a table she was never welcomed at is someone who finally realized she's the one setting the table now. If this story spoke to something inside you, something unhealed, something waiting, I hope it gave you permission to stop asking for a seat and start building your own space. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever been the forgotten one? And please help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world. It's what allows us to keep creating stories that aren't just told, but felt. This was a story of pain, but more importantly, it was a story of peace. We'll see you in the next one.